This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom radio network. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035, extension 0. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Sam MAK. And Sam has been speaking to audiences for over 20 years. As an entrepreneur, Sam has helped women business owners learn how to run successful businesses. After 9/11, Sam was asked to do a presentation on Islam for her children's school. Shortly after that, she was asked to teach about Islam to a group of Air Force Cadets, and the requests just kept on coming. Now, Sam has enjoyed the intellectual interaction from meeting new groups and learning about what they want to know about Islam. She developed an amazing video series on the common questions that have been asked her about Islam. As a Muslim woman, Sam has talked to community groups and international organizations of extensive rights of women in Islam. Her website, www.speakerauthormotivator.com. And Sam, welcome to the X-Zone.
Good to be here, Rob.
Nice having you with us, Sam. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born in Pakistan, came to the States when I was 5, didn't speak any English, and grew up in home is Denver, Colorado. And just had a great childhood, beautiful Rocky Mountains. Went to Sunday school at the local mosque, grew up Muslim in the United States, and, went on to college at Texas A&M University, and my degree is actually in electrical engineering, so radio system design. So it's always fun to be on the radio.
What was it like for a Muslim in Denver, Colorado, on September the 11th, 2011?
It was really scary because at first I was at a gymnastics class with my kids, and I had walked to take one kid to the bathroom. My kids were pretty young back then, and someone said that they thought an airplane had crashed in the World Trade Center. I was like, oh, that can't be possible. And then by the time I got out of class, everything on the radio was about September 11th, and I was just so sad to see the fire, the buildings come down, the people running, worried about my friends in New York, so worried about my friends in D.C. So it was a tough day.
When did you find that it was shortly after 9/11 that people started to look at Muslims in a very different way?
Oh, totally, because you got to understand, growing up in the 70s and 80s, no one knew what a Muslim was, right? No one knew what Islam was. I used to say I was from Pakistan. No one had any idea that even existed. So, it's an unfortunate event, but it has brought Islam into the main front of Western media. People do know what Muslim countries are now. They do know what Muslims are. They do know that the faith exists even. So, it's kind of, it's had its pluses and minuses. It's minuses, it's totally given Muslims a negative stereotype of not having anything better to do but violence. But then the pluses are that it has increased the awareness of the religion and the countries that practice it.
What, in your opinion, is the biggest misunderstanding about Muslims and Islam?
So my I'm going to share two pet peeves.
All right,
okay, Rob?
Let's do it.
So the first one is, it's kind of a twisted truth, but they say that Muslims don't worship God, they worship Allah. So that is true, but Allah is the word for God in Arabic.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like saying that, Spanish people don't worship God, they worship Dios. It's the same thing. So to kind of gap between Christians and Jews that have such a high honor in the Quran, that have such a high honor in our faith, but to put that kind of gap in between them. The other thing that I think people don't understand about Islam, in Islam, God's been making Christians for 2,000 years, Jews for 4,000 years, Hindus and Buddhists longer than that, and indigenous religions longer than that. So everyone is created the way they were supposed to be, and everyone is equal in the sense that we will all be judged the same way. If you have more good deeds, you go to heaven. If you have more bad deeds, you go to hell. So it doesn't matter what your faith is, what your nationality, what your race is, your deeds will be weighed, and based on the way you're judged. More good deeds, heaven, more bad deeds, hell. So it's equal for everyone across the board.
Why all the negativity towards Islam? My next-door neighbor, where I live, is a Muslim. His family are Muslims. They are the nicest people that I have ever met. They're my next-door neighbors. They're my friends. We share our cultures. And when I hear all the negativity in the media, I say, well, something is missing here. Something is missing. And you've been doing this for many years, Sam. What, in your opinion, is missing in this entire propaganda? Is it propaganda campaign?
You know what? There's a lot of money in hate. There's a lot of money in fear. There's a lot of money in war. And I think, there are people benefiting with this divide. There are people benefiting from the mistrust. And, that's kind of why I started my work, because I was like, people need to hear a different perspective.
Sure.
Not everyone is ready to hear a different perspective, but Rod, I honor that you are ready to hear a different perspective, and that, 1/4 of the world's population cannot be as nuts as it's portrayed in the media.
Well, you know what the media slogan is? If it don't bleed, it don't lead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We just don't, boring Muslims just don't sell papers.
Neither do boring Christians, boring Jews, boring Hindus, boring Buddhists.
Yeah, so we're not, we're not flashy. We're not, we're not bleeding, all that kind of good stuff. And my whole thing is, I see so much beauty in this planet. I see so much beauty in my Christian friends, my Jewish friends, my Hindu friends, my Buddhist friends. My goal is to have enough friends that there's a party every month, some kind of religious celebration that I've got a reason to go to. So I think diversity definitely helps with that.
I was fortunate growing up because where we lived in Montreal was the melting pot of the city, the park extension area. And we went to school with Italians, Jews, Buddhists, and families from India and Pakistan as well. And we shared our cultures. We respected each other's culture. We were part of their culture. We learned about the holidays, the religions, their beliefs. To me, this is gold. And I think in today's society, Sam, that this is what we're sorely missing, is to actually enjoy each other's culture, because when you have so many cultures coming together, it's a festival, for goodness sake.
It is a festival. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I also, one of the reasons I was reaching out to children and college students, Rob, is because their world is shrinking.
Yep.
They're playing video games from a kid in China sitting in New Jersey, and another kid in Brazil.
Yep.
I mean, they cannot be this suspicious and disrespectful to each other because they're playing video games together and they don't even know it.
This weekend in the United States, everything is on a high alert when it comes to law enforcement. This must be hard on the members of the Muslim community, because I don't want to sound as if I'm a bigot or anything, but fingers are pointing.
They are, and I have been in America for 4 decades now.
Yep.
And when I originally came, my father was a civil engineer, and he did the reservations for the American Indians. So growing up, I heard all these kind of derogatory remarks about the Native Americans, the American Indians, and my father was doing irrigation on their reservation, so we were kind of lumped in and looked down on that.
Why?
When I got to 4th grade, Denver public schools started busing. They decided that African Americans and white Americans were not mixing, so they took us out of our little hooty-tooty suburb school, and I got put on a bus for 45 minutes, drove all the way to Stapleton Airport to a less fortunate school that was all African American back then. And I remember, we would leave that school, Rob, and the way the kids talked about the other kids that were African American. And I knew, when even that young, it's wrong, but you don't speak up.
Yeah.
And then in high school, it was the Hispanics. There was the war in Nicaragua. There was the bombing of Panama. There was Noriega. There was this. There was that. And all these times, I haven't spoken up, and now it's my turn. So I feel like, we have this way of wanting to vilify certain groups. And when you take off all the spin and the talk and the negativity, they're just people. They're just people, and they want the same thing. They want a better life for their kids. They want good jobs. They want good homes. They want education. They want security.
They just want the same freedoms that everyone else enjoys.
Yep.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah,
across
exactly.
the globe. I mean, that's common.
Exactly. There's a lot of misconceptions, I believe, when it comes to the way women are treated in Islam. I was wondering if you could set the record straight for our listeners.
So, Islam, to me, has always been the most empowering religion for women. Often in the workforce, I saw women mistreated. Being an electrical engineer in an all-guy kind of industry, I saw how women were treated. And so it was just nice to have a faith that had my back. So just a couple of rights that women had. And think about this. This is 600 AD. We're talking almost 14 centuries ago. We're talking the Catholic Church is the only church for Christianity, and they're still trying to figure out, if women have a soul. We're talking about women in other parts of the world being basically property. You sell your camels, you sell your women, that kind of thing. This religion showed up. And Prophet Muhammad, who brought it, turned around and said, women have the right to initiate a divorce. They don't have to be married to you if they don't want to. He turned around and said, women have the right to vote. If they want to vote for me as a leader, I will accept it. He turned around and said that women are equal in the law. He said that women have the right to own money. I have a right to an inheritance, not only from my father, but also from my husband. And so the cool thing about it is, if you look at U.S. law right now, I would do better in a divorce situation under Sharia law, Islamic law, of 610 than I would under the current U.S. law, because half of everything I make is mine. My husband has no say on that. Mm-hmm. Half of everything he makes is mine. Everything I inherit is mine. Half of everything he inherits is mine. And anything that is considered my funds, like any money I earn or any money I inherit, he has no rights. Like, he can't say invest it this way, do this with it, do that with it. whereas all of his stuff, I have a right to an opinion on. So it's just such a kind of cool, empowering women, religion, but it's just not portrayed that way. So it's and you kind of, like you said, newsworthy. It's the guys that beat their wives, the guys that are kind of derogatory to women. I mean, that's more flashy. That's more sells papers. What the real rights women have, that doesn't sell papers.
But the derogatory, the physical abuse on women, the spousal abuse, that just isn't something that just Muslims do. Christians do it, Jews do it, Buddhists. Exactly.
Universal, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely universal. And so that's a little, right now in the U.S., if you look at our labor, we are making 78 cents to a man's dollar. The United States is still not paying women full wages on the same jobs as men. So let me tell you something that's kind of funny.
Okay.
The love story. So Prophet Muhammad, his wife was a lady named Khadija, and she was 40. He was 25, and she was owning a business, and he worked for her.
Mm-hmm.
And he did caravans into Syria and into Yemen, and he sold goods for her, and he was so honest and treated people so well that the other employees would always come to her and say, man, he's so honest, he's such a nice guy. So she actually sent him a marriage proposal. So imagine this, even in this day and age, a woman that's 40 sending a marriage proposal to a guy that's 25. He works for her. She's the one that's got all the money. She's the one with the wealth. And he accepted her marriage proposal. And that's kind of our love story in Islam and what women are made to do. She was married before. She ran her own business. She had kids from her previous marriage, so it wasn't like she needed a husband, but she had heard so many good things about him that she actually proposed to him.
Wow. That's a very nice love story.
Yeah, that is a nice love story, and happily married till the day she died. They had 6 children together.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah.
What do you think it will take, Sam, for the bigotry to end when it comes to Islam? Muslims in America, Muslims in Canada.
It's a mindset.
Okay.
And some people are born colorblind and some are not. But I do really think it's a mindset that's taught. As long as, if you look at something like the United States, and I think Canada's done a much better job, but if you look at something like the United States, our definition of ourselves is that we are a military superpower. In fact, we're one of the top military superpowers in the world. Mm-hmm. That's our identity. So the only way we can really feel good or win is by having wars, winning wars, things like that. I think it's important that other nations, such as Japan's done this, they became a technology superpower. They become a medical superpower, become an educational superpower. Let's take something that can help humanity and tie our identity to that so we don't have to, kill each other to feel good.
That would be nice, but realistically, do you see that happening?
You know what? It's funny. So you look at it at one point after 9/11, it was very negative to Muslims, right?
Yes.
But on the other hand, there's so much more awareness. When they had some of the incidents with the troops at Guantanamo, 35,000 U.S. households requested copies of the Quran. So it's kind of like, people are waking up, but the wrong way. They're getting awareness, just not positively, aware. So I think I have always lived in peace with Jews, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and I have a really good friend from India, and she always said, because India and Pakistan, always have a little bit of something going on, and she said, just because my government doesn't like your government doesn't mean I need to hate you. And I think that's that's the best way to put it. We are not our governments. We
No.
need to be individuals, and we need to treat people with human dignity and individual respect. And it's not just the Muslims. We're doing it with many other minority groups. We're doing it with definitely the native population. So there are a lot of groups that need to be seen as human beings, that there's plenty of planet to go around for all of us, and we need to treat each other with love and respect.
Sam, please stand by. You and I have to take a short break. Exo Nation, Sam Mack is our special guest. www.speakerauthormotivator.com. And I'm going to throw another word in there. Nice lady. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Don't go away again.
Creation, nativity, and second coming in his new book, Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age. Doug's latest book on Planet X explores the astounding new theory that the Star of Bethlehem and the mysterious sign that Jesus said that would foretell his second coming are in fact one and the same object, the mysterious Planet X, that even now may be winging its way back to a fateful rendezvous with Earth. Don't let the end times creep up on you like a thief in the night. Let Planet X, the sign of the Son of Man and the end of the age, help you physically, mentally, and spiritually prepare for the dark times ahead and the great destructions that are sure to accompany Planet X as it once again passes near Earth in its fateful orbit around the Sun. You can get your copy of Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, SurvivalMall.com, or through your local bookstore. Or visit www.planet-x.info for more information on how to prepare for the end of the age. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. In the early 1980s, when AIDS-related infections became more and more frequent, Frida Wagman's son, Gary, who lived in San Francisco, informed her of a medical journal article he had read. It told of an infection which seemed, at the time, to be affecting only gay men. Gary sent her a copy of this article with his notation,
"Nothing to worry about, just for your information."
Soon it was something to worry about when Gary told his mother that he had been diagnosed with that very condition. In time, the virus causing this and other rare infections became known as HIV and was the precursor to acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS. Frida immediately joined a group in her community to help people who were ill with this new phenomenon in order to learn all she could to prepare herself for what her son might have to live with or die from. During the following 12 years, while she monitored Gary's health, Frida met a multitude of people who were already near the end stage of their lives. The hands-on care became more and more intense as the caseload increased. It was during those years that the author learned the full meaning of close and personal relationships, how and what to speak to someone who has lost all of their ability to care for themselves. maintaining their dignity was of the utmost importance, and the experience transformed her into a more understanding and compassionate person. This book tells of those learning experiences by focusing on some of the individuals Miss Wagman helped for brief periods because, as the title implies, they only came into her life at the end stage of theirs. Thus, each of their stories is a snippet of the total message of the book. During those years, Miss Wagman spent Gary's vacation time with him, traveling to foreign countries and exploring California, Nevada, and Oregon, each time noting the subtle changes in Gary's health from one year to the next. He preferred to live his life as he had known it before HIV and asked his mother to do the same. But at the end, she was with him and recounts the emotional and touching goodbye in Davies Medical Center in San Francisco, California. For more information, or to get your very own copy of this award-winning book, Snippets from the Trenches, a mother's AIDS memoir by author Frida Wagman, please visit her website at www.snippetsfromthetrenches.com. That's www.snippetsfromthetrenches.com.
Hi, this is Eric Rawls of Cosmoverse.com, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Hi, this is Blade Runner, and you are listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, I'm Laura Sabrin of Sister Fields Organic Vineyards in Jordan, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Hi, my name is Lady Ashley, the White Witch of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and you're listening to Canada's #1 paranormal talk radio show, The X Zone, with Rob McConnell.
Welcome to The X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone, to all our American listeners, to each and every one of you. A very happy 4th of July Independence Weekend. And what we would like to... thanks very much. What we would like to remind everyone is to just take care of each other. Be safe. You know, who knows? And expect to have police checks and other security measures in place. But all in all, happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July. Sam MAK is our special guest. And Sam, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, because I think that this is what we need, open dialogue. We need to get past the negativity that, all right, I'm a member of the media, but we have to take responsibility for a lot of the negativity that is out there, because we spread the word, we spread the news, we spread the video footage. And I can't think of any time where they have had an open forum when it comes to these questions that so many people have about Islam. I've never seen a priest, a rabbi, a monk, and an imam sit down and say to the public, the audience, what are your questions?
Yeah, I think those forums are kind of few and far between. You know, I was thinking over the break, you were talking about your neighbors. If we can get that level of understanding and respect between two neighbors, we can do that in the world.
I agree.
And all you got to do is just get to know somebody. Yeah. You know, right now it's the holiest month of Islam. It's Ramadan.
Ramadan, yeah.
Yep, and that's the 9th month of the lunar calendar. We go on a lunar calendar, so none of our holidays actually have seasons. So Ramadan could be in winter, then it goes to the fall. Now it's in the summer, so we have the nice long fast in the heat. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, you know, Muslims, it's a big time for charity, and one of the ways that it counts as charity for us is to feed our neighbors. So definitely, you know, get invited to a Ramadan party. It's a blessing for them to be able to feed their neighbors and get the act of charity for that. And it's also a great way to get to know somebody, because once you get to know them, it's very hard to hate them.
That is so true. Help me dispel some of the misunderstandings that a lot of people have about Islam and Muslims. For example, what do Muslims think about Jews and Christians?
Okay, so Jews and Christians have a very high place in the Quran. So they are mentioned by name, that if you are Jews or Christians, we consider you as the same faith. So worshiping the same God, basically the same message, do good, live a good life, worship God, pray, and you will be granted heaven. So the Quran grants heaven to Jews and Christians. So you don't have to become Muslim or adopt our faith. You don't see us going door to door saying, "Have you read the Holy Quran?" You're fine the way you are. And so now think about it this way. So Muslims do not drink alcohol, and that's looked down upon in the religion. However, if I did drink alcohol, I would be considered Muslim, but just not a very good one, right? But if I said I did not believe in the virgin birth of Christ, that I did not believe in Mary, that I did not believe in the second coming of Christ, I am no longer considered Muslim in Islam. So to have that belief in Christ, the honoring of Christ, his message of love, all of that, huge in Islam and required for belief as a Muslim. Same with Jews. Prophet Moses, believe it or not, the Quran is a book about God, but the person mentioned the most in the book, the name mentioned the most is actually of Moses. He's mentioned 136 times. Yeah, where compared to Muhammad mentioned 4. There's sometimes that the verses imply him, but Muhammad's name is only used 4. Moses 136 times. And, Jews, similar dietary requirements. If you look at Orthodox Jews, similar dress code, covering their heads. So very, I just, I see similarities. If you want to split hairs on, I practice this way, you practice that way, I feel like people discriminate on different things. If you go to some place like Pakistan, everybody looks the same, dresses the same. First you discriminate on religion, then you'd go on nationality. Well, when everyone's the same religion and nationality, they start going on education. And then you start discriminating on money, and then you start discriminating on who's got the bigger house, right?
Sure, there's always something. There's always something to bitch about.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, who's taller, who's thinner, or whatever. But so I think, we need to look at our similarities. Where is our common ground? And then have respect for the others. And the Quran is very direct in saying that if God wanted to make everyone alike, and if God wanted to make everyone believers, God would have. But that was not God's choice. So as a Muslim, our thing is to submit to God's choice. God did not choose to make everyone the same race. God did not choose to have everyone speak the same language. So it's our job to respect God's will, not get upset because someone's not like us or, has our opinions or whatever.
Then where does the thought come from that, that the maybe it's ISIS that goes into the different towns and it's either you convert to Islam or else you're killed?
Yeah, and ISIS is kind of like the Muslim KKK. I mean, they're nuts. And
I love that. Can I use that?
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of like going to, one of those KKK burnings on the cross and saying, where does the Bible teach this? I've read the Bible. I went to Catholic school for 4 years. I never saw anything they did in the Bible. But, here's the thing. ISIS, again, is media-worthy. They've somehow, the media has given them an international platform to share this kind of strange and twisted method of mostly ego and hatred or whatever. And, yes, you can say, yes, they were in a war zone, and, yes, it's, it's an unstable region. But that, in Islam, all of that's from God, so it's not a reason to misbehave. And part of the reason that I'm drawn to this world is people look at me and then they look at ISIS and they're trying to figure out, well, how are you guys the same? ISIS has their message of violence and hatred and all that, and I think it's more ego-driven and anger-driven than anything to do with faith or God.
Yeah, so do I. I agree with you 100% there. But they scare the hell out of people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they are scary, and they're getting a lot of news. But think about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Morocco's Muslim. Algeria's Muslim.
Yeah.
Turkey's Muslim. You know, parts of China are Muslim. You're looking at India, Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia. You're looking at all of North Africa, parts of sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at, you know, a couple of states in Syria, yeah, you know, you've got spillover from the border of the Iraq and the conflict in Iraq. But, I mean, what other countries are you hearing about this level of violence? Bangladesh, they've had 2 female prime ministers. Indonesia, you know, half the stuff you buy, clothing, is made in Indonesia. You know, your oil's coming from all the Gulf states. So the rest of, I would probably say, you know, 99.999% of the Muslims are just fine. And they're living in the U.S., peaceful citizens. I mean, my father's been working as a civil engineer for over 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, they're living in Canada. They're living in Europe.
Yeah, and I've got a family of them right next door, and they're the nicest people I know. I'm proud to call them my friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. The other thing which I wanted to talk a little bit about, Rob, which you may not know, that there's a lot of influences, that inventions that the Muslims have come up with that may be influencing your life.
Really?
For example, yeah, think about the word kava. Kava actually is coffee.
Oh.
So the Arabs discovered coffee.
Right.
And the reason coffee was so valuable to the Muslims is they pray 5 times a day. And at night, this coffee drink, you know, somehow kept them up later so they could pray more. So back almost a millennium ago in Turkey, if a husband did not provide his wife with adequate coffee, she could divorce him because he wasn't helping her pray at night.
Uh-oh.
So now the Arabs, not only did they discover coffee, but they always drank it in coffee houses where they could exchange ideas and discuss kind of new things. So coffee in coffee houses comes from the Arabs. The word baccalaureate, I don't know if you've ever heard of universities, or baccalaureate is actually from the Arab world, Behake el-Rabat, which means the right to teach somebody. And so there were all these educational institutions coming up across the Muslim world, and they said we need some kind of standard to know if someone's really educated or has just gone to school, has mastered something. So that's where the word baccalaureate comes from. So if you have a bachelor's degree, a degree from a university, that's all discovered by the Muslims. Al-Khwarizmi was a mathematician. His name now is Algorithm, and he discovered algebra. So al-jabr is the transposition in Arabic. Al-jabra, the transposition of numbers. So I have to apologize if you don't like algebra. That was from us too. You know, the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. If you look at the Arab numbers and the numbers we use today, you just rotate them 90 degrees, and you'll get the exact same numbers. And of course, the Hindus came up with the 0. 3-course meals, Arabs. Quarantining the sick in hospitals before you treat them, Arabs. And then they also had these uniform marching bands, and what the whole thing behind the marching band was, you send in this band playing this loud music, and it was to kind of scare off the other team or your enemy. And then, you know, your team would show up. So how many times have you seen in a game where they have kind of the bands come in first, right?
Many times. Up. Yep, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Rile everybody up and do that. You know, checks were developed in Persia. It was a banking system because the Muslim Empire had gone from Morocco all the way to China, and they wanted a way that a merchant could sell goods in China, but then coming back home, if they got robbed, all their money would be gone. So this banking system of checks came up so that the merchant could travel across a long distance, and there was nothing, you know, he would still have his money from China in a bank in Persia. So a lot of these things that, you know, we're using the game of chess, again, another Persian game. The word earth actually comes from Arabic ard, alchemy, alkaline. Anytime you see that AL word, that's actually Arabic for the. So alchemy, alcohol, classification of elements. So huge contributions from Islam. So if you're eating 3-course meals, working at a hospital, have a bachelor's degree, and go to Starbucks, guess what? You can thank your Muslim neighbors, right?
That's right. That's right. Now, let me ask you something. Why do women cover their heads?
So, that's in a lot of cultures. It's a sign of modesty. And think about this. Like, you walk into this beautiful church, and you see a statue of Mary. What does she look like?
She's wearing a veil, or she's wearing something over her head.
Right. And that's, think about the Muslim dress code, the women's dress code, as the I Love Mary look. It's, that honoring of God. It's leading by your faith, showing I'm a godly woman first. Now, when you go into the Arab countries, some of the countries in the desert, it's just practical sense to cover your head and even part of your face.
Keep the sand out.
It keeps the sand out. If you blow your nose, it's just covered, in like little particles of sand. You're breathing all that. You're going to get sunburned. Your scalp's going to get burned. So there's a lot of just
common sense,
practical benefits. Yeah. Even if you look at cowboys, they wear hats and they wear scarves.
Yep.
Religious Jews, again, very similar dress codes, but sometimes if you're going to be out in the sun or out in the desert or have sand blowing in your face, it's just practical.
Are Muslims really violent, or is this just all negative hype that somebody that serves a purpose other than the truth?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's negative hype. So let me just tell you a couple of the things that the Prophet taught in some of the verses in the Quran.
Okay.
The Quran, which we consider God's word, which is, there's no argument, there's no nothing, says that if you take the life of one innocent human being, you will be judged as if you killed the entire mankind. So from Adam, Eve, all the way down to everyone on the planet now. So killing an innocent person is a huge, huge sin. Now, if you look at children, any child before puberty would be considered an innocent person, regardless of race, religion, or anything. A child before puberty will go to heaven no matter what in Islam and is considered innocent. So even, if you take the life of a child, that's a huge punishment. For, let's say, being rude to your wife, if you hit her, that's one sin. If there's pain, it's a second sin. If it's on the face, there's a third sin because you've insulted her beauty. If it leaves a mark, that's another sin. So just think about, how specific the law is. And one of the things that the Prophet said was the best thing that you can do to get good deeds is to smile at people. And the best person is one that smiles at his wife. To show charity and kindness towards your family and your wife is a huge, huge thing. So those are the kind of things we're taught in Sunday school. Those are the kind of things we're reading. And, we look on the TV and going, oh, my God. And it's kind of hard because, Rob, when you see the stuff on TV, you're going to get backlash for it.
Big time. Big time.
You're going to have to, you're going to get associated with it. But, there's nothing in the faith that justifies killing. There's nothing in the faith that justifies hurting somebody. And the Quran, again, ultimate authority, says that there is no compulsion in religion, that you cannot put a gun to somebody's head and say, hey, you're Muslim. It doesn't count. It just does not count because it has to be from the heart or it does not count.
If the prophet Moses, who scholars all agree wrote the book of Genesis in the Bible, is mentioned so often in the Quran, are the Ten Commandments also mentioned in the Quran?
Yeah, similar, that the Ten Commandments, that we do honor them, and, all of those, honor your parents, don't commit murder, don't steal, similar principles. They may not be in Ten Commandments, but definitely in the Quran. Parents honoring, huge thing in the Quran. Being kind to children, going after education is a big thing in the Quran. Now, the other thing is, Prophet Jesus, we see him as a prophet.
So you don't see him as this. So you don't see Jesus as the Son of God.
Yeah. So let me tell you what the whole fight's about.
Okay.
Rob?
All right.
I'm going to distill the whole fight down.
Okay.
The Christian version is that Adam and Eve sinned, right?
Yes.
They ate fruit from the tree.
Yeah.
And then that was the fall from grace, and now Christ is the Messiah, and he's kind of atoned or repented that sin of disobeying God and eating from the forbidden tree.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
The Muslim version is Adam and Eve ate from the forbidden tree. They went to God and asked for forgiveness and got it. So it was not a fall from paradise. It was where they were supposed to come anyways, and that the original sin was forgiven right there and then. Sincerely, go ahead.
Is there as much violence in the Quran as there is in the Bible? For example, the city of Sodom and Gomorrah getting annihilated because Lot couldn't find 10 just men, or the great flood where God just saved Noah and his family, killing everyone on earth, including all the animals that were on the planet. Is this kind of terror in
Noah's? Yeah, so Noah's there. The great flood is there. Moses talking to God, going up the mountain, 40 days, and parting the Red Sea. All of that is so. All of that very similar, but the way the Quran portrays it, it's kind of like people are given chances and chances and chances and chances and chances, and when they don't take the chances, then then there's a change in events. But yeah, definitely Moses, Noah, the Ark, Adam and Eve, David, Solomon, all those messengers are in there. In fact, if you look at some of the names, Jesus is Isa, Moses is Musa, Suleiman is Solomon, Daoud is David. So if you look at a lot of Arab or Muslim names, they're really biblical names.
What about Christmas? Why don't Muslims celebrate Christmas? The birth of Christ, the birth of the prophet Christ.
We don't celebrate birthdays much.
Well, that's one way of staying young.
Yeah, that's it. It's our anti-aging program.
It works.
So it's kind of more of you recognize God, you celebrate God, you pray 5 times a day to God. It's about honoring God, being grateful to God, and so even Muhammad's birthday, you won't see that much going on. Sometimes some buildings will have some lights on them and things like that, but not much as far as that. And then the other thing is, and this is a slight difference too, the Quran implies that he was not born in December because when Mary has Jesus, she's eating dates and stuff, and so they're around different times of the year.
Well, heck, we know that. He was probably born in April.
Yeah. So, they put him in March, April. Yeah. So that's another thing that we don't know if it's the accurate birthday of Christ. But, the way we show our honoring of Christ, we honor the Bible. I've always been taught a house of God is a house of God is a house of God. Christians want to come use the mosque for praying or a Bible study or, some kind of celebration. Totally cool. If if it's important to someone to celebrate Christmas, I'm going to buy them a Christmas present. If that's how I can show my friendship and show my respect, then heck, I'm doing it.
All right, I'll send you my address later. Just kidding. Just kidding. I
already got the station address. So I'm ahead of you, Rob.
You know what? You, to me, are the ambassador of Islam.
Thank you.
Because you have done such a wonderful job. And I hope that you and I, over the past hour, have been able to touch some hearts out there. And that the next time a listener who normally go out and, drive by a mosque and say a few dirty words under their breath will think that, hey, you know what? I remember listening to the X-Zone when Sam Mack was talking to Rob. And, let me think about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go talk to some of them and say, hey, I saw this on the news. What do you really think?
Yeah.
Not everyone's ISIS.
No, that's true, and that is a big thing these days. In the past, I've had the opportunity of speaking to many imams. Mm-hmm. They're never too busy to talk. They're always more than happy to set the record straight. And
I think, maybe that's why, I came here when I was 5. I never made a choice to leave where I was born. You kind of go where your parents take you. And I always think that's why I was placed here, because there is so much beauty in the Christian culture. There's so much beauty in the Jewish traditions. Hinduism, their colors and their festivals, Buddhism, the peace, the native traditions. Why not enjoy them all? Why not enjoy them all instead of judge them all?
So what do you do now, Sam, when you're not on radio explaining what Islam is all about?
So I speak at colleges, and for your listeners, if they'd like, they're welcome to go to my website, speakerauthormotivator.com, and if they punch in their emails, I'll send them a 20-minute video on Islam, and they can just put in the code XZone, and I'll give it to them for free.
Super.
And it's a little more technical, but it'll show you, some of the terminology that Allah is God, and, we pray on Fridays is our holy day. Mm-hmm. A mosque is where we pray. We're called Muslims, and the religion is Islam.
Sam, what is your final message for the X-Zone Nation tonight, all around the world?
You know what? I believe in world peace. And I believe that the people listening to this show can make it happen. So thank you so much for checking out a new perspective.
Sam, I want to thank you so much, and I'd love to have the opportunity of having you back on in the future if we need clarification, or if it's just to bring you on to say, hey, Sam, how's it going?
That sounds great, Rob. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Sam, the pleasure was all ours. Thank you very much, and may peace be with you, my friend.
Oh, wa alaikum assalam. May peace be with you, too.
So long now, Sam.
Take care.
Bye-bye. X-Zone Nation, Sam Mack has been our guest this hour. What a lady. I hope that we've been able to open up a few hearts. And this is what it's all about, getting information out there, exchanging ideas, respecting one another's religions, holidays, beliefs. We are a great world. We have so much to offer each other that I believe that we can pull this world back together and live as one. For more information about Sam Mack, visit our website at www.speakerauthormotivator.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of the top of the hour. We're going to be joined by Dr. Kimberly McGeorge. We've had the pleasure of having Kimberly on before, and we're going to have another great hour with her as the X-Zone continues right here on the Starcom Radio Network. If you'd like to check out our website, if you'd like to listen to the show, 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And anyone listening right now, this month, can read the X Chronicles newspaper online with the compliments of our advertisers and rel-mar McConnell Media Company simply by going to rel-mar.com/X201506. That's www.rel-mar.com/X201506. This is the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern, from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the Starcom Radio Network. Oh, geez. once again, all my friends in the United States, I wish each and every one of you a super weekend. Take care of each other, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.